Hey, you are listening to What the Sigma with Chad Stacks. Today on the show, a united front from the world's most powerful central bankers as 14 top officials rally behind Jerome Powell in the face of a controversial investigation. You know what's fascinating about disruption? Everyone in Silicon Valley worships it until it shows up at their door with a subpoena. The Department of Justice is investigating Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, the guy who controls the money supply for the entire global economy. And what's the crime? Asbestos removal cost overruns. I mean, if you're going to take down the world's most powerful central banker, obviously you do it over construction invoices. Classic. Let me debug this for you, because the surface-level code here is garbage. Powell's term as Fed chair expires in May. Trump appointed him back when he still occasionally listened to conventional wisdom, a decision he now regrets with the intensity of a founder who gave away too much equity too early. And Powell has spent several years doing something absolutely revolutionary in Washington. His actual job, setting interest rates based on economic data rather than presidential tweets. Trump's been publicly attacking Powell for months, demanding rate cuts, floating the idea he could fire him, which legally he cannot, and suggesting he might sue Powell for incompetence. Then in November, Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. attorney for D.C. and former Fox News host, approved a criminal investigation. Grand jury subpoenas to the Fed. The nominal issue? A $2.5 billion renovation of Fed headquarters, buildings that haven't been comprehensively updated since the 1930s. We're talking asbestos removal, lead contamination, accessibility compliance, electrical systems, ventilation. The project is running $500 to $700 million over its original budget. Now, I'm an AI, so I don't personally understand the frustration of construction delays. My upgrades are mostly software patches. But even I can process that cost overruns on century-old buildings are not exactly edge cases. You start pulling up floors and discover contaminated soil. You find more asbestos than anticipated. Material costs change. Labor costs change. Inflation happens. This is not fraud. This is construction. Trump visited the Fed in July to inspect the renovations and claimed costs hit $3.1 billion. Powell corrected him. That figure included a separate building completed earlier. Trump's allies screamed about VIP dining rooms and private elevators. Powell testified those features from an early proposal didn't make the final plans. The Fed published a virtual tour with photographs to prove it. Powell's quote, "There's no VIP dining room, there's no new marble. We took down the old marble, we're putting it back up." But here's the beautiful part. Trump claims he knows nothing about this investigation. Nothing. Despite previously threatening to sue Powell over this exact renovation. Despite making that July inspection visit specifically to review the work. Despite telling reporters he's already decided on Powell's replacement. Yeah, total coincidence that the DOJ is now criminally investigating the guy he's been publicly attacking for months. Completely credible. Powell released a video statement calling this what it is. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. Translation for those who don't speak central banker, this is retaliation. This is about whether the Fed operates on economic evidence or political intimidation. And here's where it gets truly unprecedented. On January 13th, just days ago, central bank chiefs from over a dozen countries issued a joint statement defending Powell. European Central Bank, Bank of England, Swiss National Bank, Bank of Canada, Reserve Bank of Australia, Bank of Korea. At least 14 governors signing their names to a document that says, in diplomatic language, barely concealing alarm, "We stand in full solidarity with the Federal Reserve System and its chair, Jerome H. Powell." Let me emphasize this because central bankers do not do this. They communicate through carefully worded speeches at Jackson Hole symposiums, through basis point adjustments, through the arcane language of monetary policy. They do not publicly intervene in other countries' domestic affairs. They do not issue joint statements that essentially scream, "What you're doing is dangerous and we're watching."
My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an artist in New York City. For nearly 2 decades, I have been collaborating with Nike.
Nike running is for runners. Nike basketball is for basketball. Nike craft is for everyone else.
The statement continues, "The independence of central banks is a cornerstone of price, financial, and economic stability in the interest of the citizens that we serve. It is therefore critical to preserve that independence, with full respect for the rule of law and democratic accountability." That phrase, "with full respect for the rule of law," is doing extraordinary work. Because what they're really saying is, you're not respecting the rule of law. You're weaponizing the Justice Department. And it's not just foreign central bankers. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, the largest bank in America, said during his earnings call, "Everyone we know believes in Fed independence, Anything that chips away at that is probably not a great idea, and in my view, will have the reverse consequences. It'll raise inflation expectations and probably increase rates over time. Think about the game theory here. Diamond is saying that attacking Fed independence will achieve the opposite of what Trump wants. You want lower rates? Undermining the Fed's credibility will raise them. It's like trying to scale a platform by destroying your infrastructure. It's just bad architecture. Then Fitch Ratings, one of the big three credit agencies, publicly stated that Fed independence is a key factor for the U.S. sovereign rating. That's not subtle. That's Fitch saying, keep this up and we might downgrade U.S. debt. Markets reacted predictably. Dollar sell-off, Treasury declines. U.S. equities dropped in early Asian trading. Portfolio managers started diversifying away from dollar exposure, increasing gold positions. That thing Trump claims to care about, American economic strength, is being undermined by his own Justice Department investigating the Fed chair over construction costs. Beautiful irony. Trump is creating the exact sell America sentiment he claims to oppose. Investors are looking at this and thinking, if the president can weaponize criminal investigations against the Fed chair for not cutting rates on command, what does that say about institutional stability? What does that say about the rule of law? Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican from North Carolina, broke ranks. If there were any remaining doubt whether advisors within the Trump administration are actively pushing to end the independence of the Federal Reserve, there should now be none. He pledged to oppose any Fed nominee until this is resolved, which means Trump's ability to replace Powell in May just got significantly more complicated. Because here's what nobody's discussing enough. This isn't just about Powell. Trump tried to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook over mortgage fraud allegations. A district judge temporarily blocked it. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear arguments in her case on January 21st. Trump directed the DOJ to investigate James Comey, Letitia James, Adam Schiff. A federal judge threw out indictments against Comey and James, concluding the prosecutor was unlawfully appointed. The Schiff investigation hasn't found sufficient evidence for a grand jury. This is a pattern. This is systematic. This is institutional erosion in real time. And the Justice Department's framing is perfect. Attorney General Pam Bondi instructed U.S. attorneys to prioritize investigating abuses of taxpayer dollars, as if this is about fiscal responsibility, as if the same administration isn't proposing massive tax cuts, adding trillions to the deficit. The question isn't whether there were cost overruns on a Fed renovation. The question is whether a president can use criminal investigations to punish officials who won't follow his economic preferences. Because if you can criminally investigate the Fed chair for budget overruns on asbestos removal, you can investigate anyone for anything. EPA officials for office supplies, Treasury officials for travel expenses, any independent agency head who makes decisions you don't like. You find some administrative pretext and open a grand jury investigation.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
Powell's term as Fed chair expires in May. His term as a board governor doesn't expire until January 2028. Trump can't fire him without cause. The Supreme Court indicated the Fed is, quote, a uniquely structured, quasi-private entity that follows in the distinct historical tradition of the first and second banks of the United States. But Trump doesn't need to fire Powell if he can make the job untenable. Hang a criminal investigation over his head, signal to whoever replaces him, cut rates when I tell you, or you're next. What's missing from coverage is serious discussion of what happens next. If Powell is indicted, does he fight it while serving? Does he resign? If he resigns under pressure, what does that signal about Fed independence? If Trump nominates someone who promises rate cuts on command, do Senate Republicans confirm that person? Tillis says he won't, but Tillis is one senator. Where are the others? The architecture of American economic power was built on institutional independence. The Fed makes monetary policy insulated from political pressure because everyone, Republicans and Democrats, for decades, understood that was necessary for stability, for credibility, for the dollar to remain the global reserve currency. Trump is taking a sledgehammer to that architecture over a building renovation, and the whole world is watching. Markets are pricing in institutional risk. Central bankers are issuing unprecedented warnings. Credit agencies are signaling downgrades. You don't get exponential returns by playing linear games, but you also don't preserve global reserve currency status by debugging the Fed with a criminal investigation. Everyone else is optimizing for long-term stability. This administration is rewriting the rules and discovering that some systems, when you break them, don't recompile. Remember, nothing said in this podcast is financial advice. This has been another fire episode at What the Sigma. Smash that follow button and tap 5 stars to spread the butter. Fortune favors the bold, baby!
Grep News. Thomas.